Welcome to Hemp Logic Radio, where we attempt to sift facts from opinions in this upside-down world of industrial hemp.
Good morning, everybody. This is Beth Sharp. We're just waiting for the host of the show to get on. I am with Patrick Flahnery, goes by Pat. And Pat, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first, actually, I prefer Patrick, but that's all right.
Okay.
No worries. We just met, so I met Corey actually in the industry, actually through LinkedIn is where Corey and I met up with a bunch of different people and whatnot, and him and I started conversing about a bunch of different things and realized we were on the same page on a lot of stuff. So, but my background, so I have a degree in mechanical engineering. I've been in the natural materials space for about 7 years. Got some experience in material characterization, material processing, value-add material development, and end-use applications. So what does that mean? That means you figure out what the properties of the materials are and figure out how to get them into your end-use applications, or start with, here's my end-use application, what materials can work in there, right? And you work from either direction. So I've got experience working in bamboo, flax, canaf, and hemp, and applications from textiles, non-wovens, wood composites, fiber composites, paper, biopolymers. Currently run an engineering consulting called PF Design Lab, where I help clients develop new and innovative biomaterials and products, and then assist with the required processing equipment, and currently represent an industrial decortication line out of Europe called Tatham Equipment.
Oh, wow. Sounds like you're a busy guy.
Well, it's just I got a lot of interest in the material development, and it takes a lot of understanding of, it's not just, hey, it's hemp, therefore we're going to use it in these things because it has cellulose. Like it's more involved than that. So you have to understand the stuff not only from the makeup of the material, but then understand what the processing needs to be to get into these applications and get into these uses. So it requires a pretty broad knowledge set to actually make those things happen.
Right. And then, so what got you interested in hemp in the first place?
Well, it really came from my composites background. So I went to school to get an engineering degree because I really was interested in composite materials. And, most people think fiberglass and carbon fiber and things like that. And that is true. However, not all, composite can basically mean you mix a couple different materials together to get it to act a certain way or to get certain material properties. And it turns out that natural materials, fibers, or like wood particles work really well in a lot of these different applications. And you can do a lot of engineering to manipulate them to do different things. So started working on bamboo fibers to replace glass fiber in certain applications, and had some success with that. And then that turned into, talking to clients and people in industries and things like that. And they said, well, Europe is basically doing all these things with these other natural fibers. It'd be cool, though, to see those happen in the United States. And so worked on getting some of those materials to work in these different applications as well. So I've been working with the different forms of natural materials for total about 7 years, specifically with hemp stuff on and off for about 5 years.
Wow, that sounds great. So it sounds to me maybe like Corey Sharp has arrived.
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm actually. I had to call into my own show. I couldn't get my headphones to. I'm sitting there. I mean, this is the best part about live radio is that it's just oh my God, the audio of this thing. So yeah, I'm sitting. I can listen to you guys, but I can't talk. So I had to call into my own show. Awesome.
You're welcome. You are allowed to talk now.
Beth, you did a great job there in the beginning. Good. You handled that like a professional. So,
I thank you. I'll pat myself on the back.
Patrick, you're. So yeah, it's been Patrick. You and I've been talking for I don't know about a month and a half probably, trying to get you on the podcast. And you're one of the few people that are on LinkedIn that kind of has the same mindset of what the hemp fiber market is, where it's going, and what is it going to take to actually make it work. So I'm glad to have you on the show.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot. And I agree. I think you and I, we hit it off right away because we started, had the same, thought processes that went on. I don't know if you heard earlier on, I was mentioning that, you come from a numbers background on the farming side, and I come from a numbers side on the material side. And I think what's different about us and our approach to this whole thing is we kind of take a lot of the emotion out of it, right? We're not emotion driven. Like, we want to, it's a business. It has to work. It has to make money to work, or I have to meet these certain mechanical performance to get the material to work, and I can't, as much as I want it to work, sometimes it just doesn't. And that's okay. Right.
Yeah. And that's something I think in the hemp industry throughout, I mean, from the bottom all the way to the top, depending on what segment, food, fiber, or pharma, everybody thinks that hemp is going to, save the world. And it has the possibilities. It's just, can it work financially? And I think that's sometimes a disconnect.
Yeah, 100%. And unfortunately, I think we end up being sort of like the bearers of bad news. And I've had several times where I've kind of shown, people have made a statement, said something, and I was like, I got to get that guy in the room. I'm like, well, actually, here's what's going on, and they honestly are like mad. Like, they get angry that you told them this or you showed them this, and I'm like, I'm not doing it to be a jerk. I'm showing them, like, okay, it doesn't work here, but what I just explained to you actually makes it work over here. So let's work on that, So it's just, you can't force it. It is what it is, right?
Yeah. And sometimes the reality of it is what kills people.
Yeah. I give
they get mad.
They get mad. Yes, they do get mad. I give, when I give presentations and talks and things like that, I always kind of start out with well, here's my philosophy. Here's where I come from, so you understand, how I'm presenting this information to you and why I'm presenting it the way I am. And I come from an engineering background. It's numbers driven. It's about physics, right? And there's two universal laws of physics that kind of transcend everything in our lives. And number one, it's nothing's for free. And number two, we're never as efficient as we want to be. And as long as you understand those two things when you're working through this stuff, then it helps you to make these better choices and realizations on stuff that, I want this to happen. I want to be 110% efficient, but I realize that I'm never even going to be 100%. So let's start from there,
Yeah, it's definitely it's sometimes you'll get into it, and this is a good analogy. You walked up and kicked their marbles, it's but you want to help these people, but sometimes they just don't get things. I think there was one lady, and I, she was I think you and I were both in on the conversation. It was about biofuel. And,
yeah.
Now is the time with the coronavirus raging through the country. Now is the time for biofuel, and we're all, no, actually, that's actually the other way. It goes, why would you invest money in biofuel? And then you did the math on her, and it really it crushed her. Do the math.
Well, I like to think of it. I think they thought I kicked their marbles. I think I walked up and rearranged them in a certain way that tried to tell a different picture, right? So,
I'll kick the marbles. You can go ahead.
Yeah. Look, I might have rearranged them with my feet, but I wasn't kicking them just to kick them.
No. Oh, geez. Oh, man. So, you were on a roll. Well, I was just going to say, Patrick, you were on a roll there when I got on the line. Why don't you continue, talking about your work and where you, what you're working with, what you're working on, where you see the future. Just kind of tell us, where you're at in the hemp industry.
Well, I think what I'm working on now, as much as I'd like to hang out in my lab and make stuff, right? Really, the bottleneck right now in the industry, look, let's pretend that we can actually make 50,000 things out of hemp. I think that's the new number, right? 50,000, somewhere around there.
It keeps going up.
Yeah, if you don't have the material, you can't do anything, right? So in the industry right now on the fiber side, it's a lack of processing, right? And then even to compound that, it's a lack of processing at the scale you need to be to make these things economically viable. Look, this is a commodity, right? And we're competing with things like wood, cotton, and polymers, and we know what those prices are, right? Wood 10 cents a pound, cotton 50, 75 cents a pound, polymers are on $1 a pound. So now we know what the price is, right? So now it's like, oh, well, if we can't meet that price, can we beat that on value? If the hemp's more expensive, is there a way to justify it, right? And so spend a lot of time working on that kind of stuff. Now, to get that number closer to like that wood, cotton, polymer kind of stuff, you have to be scale, right? You have to be running stuff that's 2 tons an hour, 250 days a year, right, at 85, 75% capacity. In order to get that material price down to be competitive with those other things that you're basically, competing with. So right now it's a lot of time people are calling me up and they're talking about processing, and the big thing, here's the number one thing when people say, I want to get involved in processing. I say, who's your customer? And if they don't have a customer, I say, well, go find them. Because what you need to do is you need to figure out what your customer is, figure out what their material specification is, and then from there we can figure out what sort of equipment you need to go out there. I think there's this idea of if we build it, they will come, and that's sort of true at a high level. That's true, but more specifically, what are you trying to do with the material, right? What is your end goal? What's your end use? And so you need to start there. And so one of those things that I deal with is so that's, we're talking about purpose grown kind of stuff, right? So there's an equipment company called Tatham Equipment out of the UK that I represent. There's several industrial scale decorticating lines. The advantage of Tatham is they're the least expensive one out there. About half on a throughput basis, they're about half the cost. Now you're still talking a system that's $1.5 to $2.5 million. But you can get up to 4 to 5 tons an hour through it, right? So it starts to make economic sense. So I spent a lot of time recently working on that kind of stuff. The other thing is, well, okay, so we have all this. I'm going to call it field waste, right? So the hemp industry. So my numbers show that about 90-95% of the total biomass grown for hemp in the United States is not utilized, right? So how do I get those numbers? Well, most of it's grown for CBD, right? Maybe 5% of the acreage out there is not for CBD, but a CBD flower is about 20% of the mass of that plant, right? And what you're actually extracting out of that flower is a fraction of that as well, right? So you have all this material that's available, and there's a lot of things you can actually do with that material, right? There's only a couple things that you really have to grow specific grown for. That would be high-end fiber for spinnable grade or high-end non-wovens. And there is a slight difference in the herd as well. But a lot of stuff can come out of the bio-waste. So there's a lot of options. There's a couple options for processing that. We're actually working with a group right now. We're going to announce this in a couple of weeks here, where we've got a piece of equipment that makes it affordable for even, I'm going to call it large-scale farmers or co-ops to be able to process and monetize that field waste. So that's actually pretty exciting.
Well, that's the part of, about you and I having these conversations. I realized that you had a better understanding of what it actually took to get hemp out of the field. And I always say, my spiel is when people are talking about this, it's like, well, we got to get it out of the field first. We got to get it in the field, and now we got to get it out of the field. And then you come in and you go, okay, once we get it out of the field, then we can do these things with it. It's always cart before the horse in this industry, always. And it's ever since that I've gotten into it, it's always, well, we've got to get this done before we can get this done, but this costs, millions and millions of dollars. And there's people out there, the smaller people are, I have a story, and actually Beth was there. It was one of the first. Groups we'd gotten together. It was in Yakima, Washington, and there was probably 20 people in the room. And this guy, I got up and spoke because we were going to plant that year. It was in this very early in the spring when we. And so everyone was super interested in what I had to say. It was first time ever. And I got done talking, and this guy came up to me, and he was so excited. He was buying this Chinese decorticator, and he was going to put it in his garage, and he was going to make, and this is the best part, he was going to make T-shirts and tie-dye.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, tell me, and at the time, I didn't know a whole lot. That was not feasible. And I said to him, I said, well, that's, yeah, I said, in my little bit of knowledge, I knew that this was, wow, this is way out there. I said, well, can you tell me more about this? I said, you're going to put it in your garage, or are you going to grow the hemp in your backyard, or are you going to 2-ton bales of hemp in your driveway? And he looked at me. Yeah. Well, what do you mean? No, you tell me what you mean, because I'd really like to know, plan on decorticating in your garage and making tie-dye T-shirts with it. But that's some of it. I mean, it's better, but you still hear this. They're going to do this and they're going to do that. So, let me ask you this, Patrick. What is your thoughts on the minimum amount of acreage or pounds? Let's do pounds, because acreage can be subjective. How many pounds do you think a year needs to be processed for us to make actual money? I said this, and as soon as I said it, it sounded stupid, because what are we making?
Very good. Yeah.
Breaking it down. Yeah, let's break it down. We're breaking it down for some sort of fiber, but we're focusing on hurd, and that's a lot of doing, because they use the hurd in hempcrete. So, in your opinion, how many pounds a year needs to be processed for hurd?
Well,
let's leave the fiber out of it for right now.
Yeah. So let's. I'll run through a little analysis on decorticating, just kind of in general, right? And so the numbers I use, and this is where I've, you and I kind of talked a little bit before, where I hate the memes, right? The memes are almost all of them are wrong, or they tell one part of the story and leave out everything else, all the important stuff, right? So going back to your thing about fiber, or the T-shirts, right? Like, everybody thinks that, well, because we grow hemp, therefore now we have textiles in the United States, and they don't realize, like, what is required between growing that hemp to get that in the T-shirt. The amount of infrastructure and equipment and that gets it converted into that is enormous, and it requires millions upon millions of dollars of equipment and hundreds of people, right? Hundreds of people. So anyway, I just want to follow up with that. But to go back to your thing, so let's talk about an industrial scale line, right? So you're going to get, the numbers I tell people to use is 2 to 3 tons per acre, of total biomass. Now you're going to see stuff out there, 10 tons here, 20 tons, and, comparing it to trees and all that kind of stuff. None of those numbers have been shown to be true commercially, right? Those numbers come from like small test plots, but the numbers are 2 to 3 tons of material per acre. So we're talking 6,000 pounds, and a small industrial scale decorticating line will do about 2 tons an hour. Now, if you're going to run that line for 3 shifts a year, that's 10,000 acres. It's 10,000 acres you need to grow at 2 to 3 tons an acre to keep that machine running and to make that business viable. That's the small side of the scale required for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I was just, as you were talking, Patrick, I was like, we need to, if you're listening to this podcast and you're hearing these numbers, it's kind of disheartening, and I don't want you to be disheartened, because I know you have a dream. So if you're listening to the podcast and you hear these numbers, it's just, let's take it at face value. What is it? I know that Corbett with Power Zone, they have those little 660s, that do, I think they do a ton an hour. And they're making them, to where you can actually, they've got a feeding system now they're working on where you can put a round bale
and actually have it hand fed, or not, instead of hand feeding it, it's actually machine fed. Even then, you have to work that thing 3 shifts a day. You have to run that thing almost 24/7, 365, and then do the math, extrapolate the math out, and you're right. You're at these massive amounts of acres.
So that's to be a business, and now you're not going to grow 10,000 acres in year one, right? It's going to take you 3 to 5 years to get to that point. Here's the other thing that I like to tell people about this is that nobody's done this before, right? Like, so your farmer hasn't done this before. You haven't run this equipment before. You haven't run this business before. You don't really know what you're going to get, right? So let's say that first year things go wrong, right? You don't quite get the yield you want. You didn't get the material properties you wanted or whatever. And so year 2, you do some sort of sensitivity analysis or just kind of figure out what you're doing wrong, and you change those things in year 2. And let's say everything runs perfect on year 2. Well, you don't know that you really solved the problem, right? The thing that you were missing, you might have missed, and that might have fixed itself or something like that. So it takes a third year, right, to do it again, to repeat your results, to say, yep, boxes checked, moving forward. So, and as you're doing that, you're gonna ramp up, in material. So, yeah, I'm not trying to be the dream crusher when I give these numbers out, but that's where you have to be. Now that's purpose grown, right? So let's talk about the CBD or the seed side of it. That's where you don't need that kind of acreage because you've already made money on the seed or the CBD, right? Or hopefully you did. And this can actually augment that. So this now we're down to with equipment that's only going to cost you a couple hundred, 300,000. Now you can get away with about 2,000 acres, right? So people are like, well, I don't have 2,000 acres. It's like, well, your co-op might, right? Or your county might, and so that makes that number work. But you have to realize too, now we're talking different price points, right? So on purpose-grown fiber, you're talking around 75 cents a pound after decortication, right? On the herd side, people are getting about 35 cents a pound, but I don't think it's going to stay there very long. I think that number is really closer to about 25 cents a pound because you can get it out of Europe for 30 cents a pound. And then, but on the dual purpose side,
that's delivered. That's delivered. That's putting it in a shipping container and it's landed 30 cents a pound.
Right. So let's look at then what the pricing on that dual purpose stuff is. Well, you're not going to get the same material properties out of it, the same quality, so you've got different end use applications. So take those numbers and basically cut them in half, right? So now you're at 12, 14 cents for your herd, and you're at maybe 35 cents for your fiber. But this is fiber now people are working on this. I have yet to see any dual purpose fiber that becomes a spinnable grade fiber without what they call a cottonization process, right? Which is degumming and bleaching it. You can get fiber straight off if you do a purpose grown fiber. You can get that straight off the line to be a blendable grade fiber to blend with wool or cotton, or to go straight into non-wovens. So that fiber, that dual purpose fiber, I have yet to see where that actually makes economic sense in any sort of textile application. I know people are working on it. I haven't seen anything that's commercially available, viable yet. So
that's one of the things you and I have talked about. You and I've talked about this, Patrick, is people think they're going to do a double crop and they're going to pull the seed out for food and then use the fiber. But in fact, for a true fiber, industrial textile fiber, you have to actually you cut that early, correct?
Yeah. So right. So I guess fiber's means a lot of things. So if we're talking textile grade fiber, spinnable grade fiber, the varieties that are purpose grown, it's harvested basically before the plant goes to seed or when it starts to go to flower. And you're getting the best material out of it at that point. It also goes through a retting process, right? The retting process is basically think of it as a light rotting, right? And what's happening is there's enzymes that go in and it eats away the pectins and the and stuff that holds the fiber to the hurd, and that allows it to decorticate more efficiently. Almost all of the dual purpose stuff, I've never seen anybody actually do that with it, right? Not on any sort of, again, there have been little test plots and people have done that. So the reason you do that is the decorticating process. The word actually just means like cleaning, right? Which is the first step in it, which is separating the fiber from the hurd. But that's only half of it. And the second half is actually opening up those fibers. So you get these like ribbonous material that comes off, and it's actually fiber bundles that are all held together. And you want to open them up, sort of like if your fingers are closed, and together, and you spread them out, right? That's what you're trying to do with these fibers to release the fibers out of these ribbonous bundles. Almost all of the smaller scale decorticators only do that first cleaning step, right? They're like roller crushers and things like that, and they don't open the fiber. And that might be fine depending on your application, right? But if your application requires a fiber that is, fine or open, like maybe a non-woven application, you have to do that secondary step. Well, through attrition, you can get that to happen by running your material back through a second or third time, but now that fiber just costs you more to do that, right? So again, it's who's your customer, what's their specification, then get the proper equipment.
Wow. Well, what do you think? What's the future of this? I mean, how far? I say it's 5 years plus before, especially with this coronavirus. I know that there's been some talk in the last couple of months. There was that group Panda out of Texas, and then the big boys that are really good at raising Wall Street money. They dumped in their Canopy guys. They want to raise $175 million, but that's Wall Street money, and I see that being a disaster. That's got disaster written all over it, because they're just going to be throwing up money at people with their marbles on the ground. You need you need some bigger marbles? Here's $20 million right here. Go. Jeez.
Well, the $20 million you say is actually a good number to talk about. The guys the ex-Canopy guys, they were supposed to have that IPO in like mid-March, right? Did it even happen? Do you know?
I don't think it did. What, dude? With the coronavirus, everything. Yeah. And unfortunately, this is a hemp industry issue, and it's, people ask, well, how come you don't talk about hemp as much as you used to? And I said, you really don't want to know what I truly think about what's going on in the hemp industry. So you try to be. Yeah. I'm not the rah cheerleader when the house is on fire. The hemp industry's. The hemp industry is going to take it on the chin with this coronavirus. It's taken, and you can probably attest to this, is that people that were going to invest or looking at pushing money into something in the hemp industry have now completely pulled back out. And they're 100%. Like, you know what? We have to pull back. This was a great idea, guys, and it's still a great idea. But I have to fortify my position in what I made my money doing. I need to make sure I can survive this. Then we can, we can talk. Once everything gets settled, then we can talk about it. And however long that is, that could be 2 years, 5 years. It could be 10 years before we get the momentum that we had just 3 months ago. That's my opinion. I might be wrong.
You were wrong one time, but it just turned out you were mistaken, correct?
Yes. No, ask my wife. I'm wrong a lot.
I'm pleading the fifth on that one.
I've seen it go both ways, right? I think, look, there's some sophisticated money out there, and there's some not so sophisticated money out there. Fortunately, I'm involved in two projects right now that are going to be able to weather the storm, and so I'm fortunate on that. And in fact, it's only gotten better for those two projects in the past month and a half. So it's just just weird timing. But you're right. I've seen some other projects that are just basically like, yeah, this is on hold, right? So I don't know what that timeline looks like. I think it's 5 to 10 years before there's mass adoption of the material in end-use applications. You know, it's going to take that amount of time to get that before you start seeing it, right? You know, so yeah, I think there is a little bit of. I mean, this whole thing is, yeah, it's awful. And so many.
It's
awful, right?
Because there's no end. There's no. Well, this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then we should come out of it. There's no talking about. Well, it's just everybody's holding their breath, you know, and it's starting to get to that. You know, we've been holding our breath for 2 minutes now. Do we have to hold it for 3? Do we have to?
Yeah.
You know,
I think initially the reaction was valid. Like, all right, we don't know what's going on, so we're going to pause, you know, hold our breath, like you say. But we now know enough of what's going on. And look, this is we're gonna, you know, you and I have been saying the same thing on LinkedIn about, like, we just got to get moving, right? Like, we can't be paralyzed by fear because of the second and third order effects that are already on their way, you know. So to make a blanket statement of that, this is what we have to do across the nation, because there's a small set of individuals that are making up the majority of the cases in concentrated in these large metropolitan areas, does not mean the rest of the country needs to be shut down. And if it means like stuff like that, means we can't make the food to get to those people, right? So it's insane to me. And what's really insane to me is how people are so accepting of it, right? That they're just like, no, we're going to do this because we're told so. And it's like, wait, we've got data. We've got data that shows that this is not the right thing, you know? So, I mean, there's good data out there that shows that the lockdowns didn't do anything if the all-low is as high as it is. It means it was already burning itself out, right? Like, but we didn't know that then. We know that now, right? Or that we actually don't know that until we get the testing and all that kind of stuff. But there's valid data that says those kinds of things. So, yeah,
I don't know. It's you know, and the last it tends to the conversation's always kind of after we get done talking about the important stuff that comes into start talking about the coronavirus and what it affects. You know, it affects everybody's business and it affects our food chain. It affects everything about us. And then like you brought up, you know, we're literally, you know, self-imposed martial law almost in some areas.
Yeah.
And it's coming from, you know, I'm 53, ex-Marine, you know, I have a different way of looking at the way things are going, and I'm just going, whoa, you know, the government has this massive amount of just control over the population, and then you see the mayor of LA giving out rewards for turning in your fellow citizens because they're not self-quarantining. What is that? You know, so that we can go. That's terrifying, Patrick.
We are seeing stuff that was written in books, right? It was fiction, right?
Well, there was a great, you know, you said you don't like memes. I love memes. I have 500 memes on my phone. I'm a meme. I collect these things. They're awesome. But there's one, it said, it was about the, oh man, I lost my train of thought and it was awesome. It'll come back to me.
What I don't like I don't like a lot of the memes that are in the hemp. Look, the funny ones. I like funny memes, right? And there's a lot of memes about hemp that are just not true, right? And people, they get passed around until they're accepted as truth, right?
Yep.
And they're just not true. Henry Ford did not build a car out of hemp. It did not happen.
I was talking to a lady about that. The Michelle Thorne, Beth, the gal that was on the podcast yesterday. Yep. She actually thought that Henry Ford made a car out of hemp. No, I had to say, no. I said, no, that doesn't work like that. And she's like, oh, my God.
I read it so many times, you know. So when you go back to the original source of the information, it turns out that they made some composite panels for the vehicle, right? And at best, from either a mass or volume basis, maybe 1% of the total car was hemp, maybe. And there's zero.
And it was probably a byproduct of something. You know, it wasn't specifically.
Well, they were making a non-woven mat, and then they were infusing it with a polymer. You know,
they had polymers back then.
Yeah. Bakelite, okay. Right? That was the very first polymer that we produced. So it was a panel made of that.
I found the meme. It says, you know, people who are surprised America has turned into a nation of cancel culture snitches clearly has not been paying attention to social media the last 5 years.
Yeah.
That's a great quote. You know, we've become this. If you don't like something, you go and you bring all your friends, because it's so easy to just get on social media and bring your friends and you attack them, whatever it is. You know,
it's bully culture, right? And like you can do it from behind your keyboard, because you don't actually have to face them, right? And there's no threat of them being physically bigger than you, so you can lip off. You know, like.
Well, you're bigger. Yeah, you can be bigger by somebody because you have a following. You have a following of 10,000 people, and if you say, I don't like this person because he kicked my marbles in the hemp industry, and then you get beat up. And I've seen it on LinkedIn where, you know what? It's always political. Always.
Yeah.
It's always political when they come out and they start attacking me on LinkedIn, which it just infuriates me. But it's a group, and they just, it doesn't work as well on LinkedIn as it does on the other social medias, because, you know, I'm always an advocate of keep that crap.
Yeah.
Keep that shit on Facebook. You take it to Facebook.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is for business. If you want to have policy discussions, I'm more than willing to have policy discussions. I will not talk about politics.
Yeah.
I will not talk about politics. It just gets, you know, interesting enough on the politics side. You know, my web group is, you know, I knew that, you know, they didn't align correctly, and they knew after a time that I didn't align with the same. And we were talking one day, and he says, "Can we talk about politics for a second?" And I said, "Do you really want to go there?" He goes, "Well, I just want to, you know, I just want to talk about it." So we talked a couple of minutes, and he goes, "You know, Corey, we're not that far apart."
Yeah.
And I said, you know, that's the funny thing that you talk about politics is when you break it down and you actually have a conversation, we're really not that far apart. You know, and he goes, "Yeah, you're right." You know, and so I said, "Let's just stop now, because we've had a really good conversation and I don't want to ruin it." But honestly, Patrick, that's, I think, in our society now, we have to step back and, you know, you can have your opinion, but you don't, just because my opinion doesn't align with yours, you don't get to cancel me.
Yeah, the problem too is this whole identity stuff, right? You put a label on someone, and automatically it means all these certain things about them, right? Or you're not even going to engage with them because they're this on this topic. And like that shouldn't matter, right? You know, like you said, let's talk about the issue, right? Let's talk about the fundamental problem we're having. You know, like it doesn't really, you know, putting that label, doing that is a way to try to control the conversation and ultimately control the language, right? And that everybody has to push back against that, right? And so it's
definitely an interesting times. I thought we were living in interesting times before the coronavirus. You know, I think we're going to be in for a shock at the amount of people working from home. I think you're going to see a lot more people working from home. you're going to see businesses sprout out of people's living rooms like you've never seen before. You know, people are going to be the entrepreneurial side of this is just going to be. You know, maybe that guy wanted to make T-shirts out of his garage wasn't such an idiot, right?
Right? You got to figure out how to do it, right? Like there's I just did a thing the other day. Actually, it was like talking about the different types of people and personalities and on how they're handling this and how they're going to come out of it. You know, and everybody that's just like the full on like lay down, tell me what I need to do, you know, to like what you're talking about, like people are going to get crafty, right? We'll get crafty and who knows? And look, at the end of the day, what we are going to see is a resurgence of made in America, right? For a number of different reasons. And I think that's a good thing.
I'm really okay. I'm really okay with that. I really am. We've lost that. You know, I know after 9/11, the patriotism was really, really high, and I was really, you know, it was, you know, there was a couple of Marine friends and I were talking about, man, should we try to go back in? Should we try to go back in? I'm like, no, I'm too old for that. And you know, I was in my 30s, but late 30s. And I'm like, no, let the young kids go handle that. But you know, the patriotism, if we can get that to turn a little bit, and you know, it's just, you know, America's the greatest country in the freaking world. Why do you have to beat it up? And why, you know, and you know, we can talk about, you know, capitalism and socialism and all that, but it's really, you know, we have a great system, and it's not perfect. You know, you can see the cracks. You know, I don't know if I read an article or a piece once about societies, and there hasn't been a society or a government system last longer than 250 years, ever, in human history. And we're pushing the 250 right now. And so the author says, you know, the problem that we have is Americans think that we're different because we're better. But yet, over human history, there's never been a government last longer than 250 years.
Sure, that's true. And I'll play a little devil's advocate here on it.
Sure.
I think there are, you know, it's a really, really good system, right? Is it without flaws? Absolutely not. So I think it's okay to be critical of those things that aren't working, right? But that doesn't mean burn it to the ground. Not yet. So,
you know, it's almost like they're trying to do it. They're giddy about it.
Yeah, right.
They're giddy.
But I would say that the 250 years you talk about in the United States, you know, I would say that we weren't the country we were 200 years ago. So it's not exactly the same system. It has changed. It has you know, morphed. So I would agree that you know, no system that has lasted that long. I wouldn't say we're the same country we were 200 years ago. I guess I'm going by history.
I'll agree.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, 250 years isn't it funny how you know, over history, you know, the Earth's history, you know, we've been on it. I've been on it 53 years, and it's not even a pin drop of time. Yeah. You know, of what it's just we're here for such a short period of time, and I've always, you know, my younger Corey was really just a bull in a china shop, and you could probably still say that about me now. But
I will also put my Fifth Amendment right there. Be quiet.
God, you know, it's just I'm gonna start calling you Fifth Amendment or Fifth. Plead the Fifth, Beth.
Plead the Fifth.
You know, as we get older, we start to look things a little bit differently, and you know, I'm up with one of my friends here, and we went and visited his grandmother, who's 95. You know, and some of the stories that she has, and you just reflect on how far 95 years ago this lady was, you know, packing apples in boxes and making like 25 cents a day and saving it by a washing machine. That was she worked for about 3 years to build enough money so she could have Montgomery Ward send her a washing machine.
Yeah.
Just incredible how our country has changed and how far we've come in technology and, and then going back to the coronavirus and what is it going to do to our country as a whole. I hope we don't take this social distancing thing too far. I don't know.
Again, too, like there's going to be second and third order effects from that, So, does that now become policy? Does that now just become accepted norm? Does it become some sort of mix of the both, or does it eventually just go away, right? And we're like, okay, we did what we thought we had to do, but we don't need to do that anymore. We don't do that for any other infectious diseases. We don't. So.
Until they find out exactly how deadly it is, I think is what we're going to find out once the death rate actually gets figured out. And I hope they find that it's maybe just a tad bit worse than the flu. Or I've heard reports that it's actually less than the flu. So we don't know. I mean, how many of these deaths, that they're counting were flu.
So the death rate is only going to go down because we are undercounting the denominator and overcounting the numerator in that equation, right? The numerator is the number of people that die from coronavirus. Well, the CDC has already admitted that. We're like, we don't even know. So if anybody dies of anything that even remotely resembles it, they died of coronavirus, right? And then, and so that number is overcounted, right? That's the numerator. Now your denominator is the number of people right now that have been infected with it, but the true denominator is really the population of the United States, right? And the people that have actually gotten infected. And we'll know that more from when we get the antibody tests going, right? And so the death rate is only going to go down. It's only going to look better as we move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but the social distancing and all these other things, these are things that we're, uncharted territory. Of course, we can flip right back and circle right back around to where people are putting ourselves in self quarantine and self martial law type stuff. It's just you really don't know what our society is capable of at this time in our country. What are they capable of? And that was so anyway. Patrick, you're one of the you're a great guest. You have you're a smart guy. You have great insight on the hemp industry, and you're able to transcend across topics fairly easy. So definitely going to have you on again. I would love to, and I think we can come back around. Actually, I need to get going here in just a few minutes. But I'd like to kind of come back around. Maybe you and I could maybe next time touch on a couple things. One, what are the real uses of this material? Where are the benefits? And kind of try to maybe dispel some more of those myths. And here's one of the reasons why for dispelling some of these myths. Because at the end of the day, if you believe something, right, and let's call it a religious belief. If you have this religious belief about the use of this material, and it is not true, it turns out to be not true. There's two things that happen, or because of that. One, you're going to get disappointed because your belief system got crushed, and two, if you believe that's true and I can't make that work, it's going to look like I failed. But I'm trying to tell you, like, I can't get there anyway, right? So you're setting yourself for failure and setting yourself up to be disappointed. So let's have an honest conversation about what the real possibilities of the material are, and let's really celebrate those. The other thing I'd really like to talk to you again too, once we get this project figured out, is the equipment for the field waste, right? And that actually is going to be the way that we've laid it out is going to be a game changer, because with the equipment comes a purchase order from us that says, if you make this quality of material, I'll buy back every pound of it from you. So it reduces the risk to the people to get involved in that, and gives them, the farmer, the co-op, or the processor another revenue stream. So I'm pretty excited about that project. The lower, I think the lower end quality fiber is definitely the low hanging fruit. We've got to, once we figure that out, then we can really start to focus on fiber only pushing that, pushing the textiles. But we got how many times, I don't know how many people I have in my database that have called me or emailed me. I have, I grew 20 acres of CBD hemp and I've got all these stalks. Can you buy them? No.
Yeah.
Chop them up, put them in your, no. I don't, It's not even a conversation, but that's it. That's the easy stuff. That's the stuff that we can all our machines. And
that's right.
If something only costs $10,000 and they can process those stocks into something that you would buy, or get it to a second mill type of situation, boom, there you go. So, we talked about this before you came on. Was there was going to be 2 shows. There was going to be this one, and then when you got your process figured out, then we'd have you back on, and we can have all these discussions. So, most definitely had you come back on.
Cool.
So, well, let's call it a day. Appreciate your time, Patrick, and I'll let's keep in touch and let me know, and we'll get you back on the show.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. I'll just before we leave, I'll just give a little plug on my stuff. So we talked about that Tatham equipment. If anybody wants to talk about that and get a quote and talk about what that really looks like, feel free to reach out to me either here or on LinkedIn or pfdesignlab.com. And we can go from there. But yeah, thank you very much. It was awesome to have another conversation with you and to talk about this stuff and, just to talk about the realities of what these things are. But at the same time, there's possibilities. I tell people all the time, when I talk about these things and I'm like, it sounds like it's bad, right? I'm not kicking your marbles, right? I'm just rearranging them to give you a different picture of it. And what I'm actually showing you is that there's actually a lot of opportunity here. So that's really, I just come at it a little bit different way.
Right on, man. And I totally appreciate it. And definitely we're going to have you back on because you're a smart dude.
All right, Corey. Appreciate it, sir.
All right, buddy. All right, man.
All
Take care, buddy. I'll talk at you soon. Thanks, Patrick.
All right. Thanks a lot. See you guys. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. All right. Well, that was, thank you for covering for me in the beginning there, hon.
No worries. I do what I can.
I was listening to you and I'm like, well, he's not here, so I'm going to do this. I'm gonna introduce you, and I'm going, good job. Way to not be. I'm sitting there going, do I have to end this episode? Is it going to completely blow up in flames? Or, but it did. You did it. You did a good job. So,
well, thanks.
So, this is the Hemp Logic Radio program. It is live. If you'd like to be on the Hemp Logic Radio program, send me an email at radio@hemplogic.com. This is it for the Industrial Hemp Fiber Market Podcast. My co-host, my wonderful EBH, Beth Sharp. That's where you talk.
Fun.
I'm gonna have to send you some self-help radio program stuff so you can. I love that you're just beginning this because it's so fun to listen to you. Like, oh, what?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm being mean to you. So
it's okay.
Anyway,
it's okay. I'm used to it.
Oh, really? All right.
Hey, you started it.
Well, thanks again for listening. If you're still here after all this, you guys have a great rest of your day, and hope to hear you or back on the radio here shortly. So you guys have a great rest of your day. Talk to you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.